What's up, everybody? Welcome once again to Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Axe, and we are coming to you after, no bones about it, friends, pretty brutal loss for the Syracuse basketball team tonight as they fall to the Miami Hurricanes. Final score, 88-87 in Miami. First of two on the road for Syracuse. They'll play Wake Forest on Saturday. And a game that Syracuse let slip through its fingers, a game Syracuse led at one point by 18 points, a game Syracuse led by 14 points at halftime, but a complete role reversal, a tale of two halves to say the least for Syracuse as Miami storms out in the second half of this game. They outscore the Orange 58-43 in the second half of this game and ultimately win 88-87. And frankly, this is a game you'd probably rather lose by 20 or 30 points than the manner in which Syracuse lost. You look at it, you say, oh, they only lost by 1 point. It was a close ACC game, but not the case. This is a game that Syracuse completely wilted under a pretty simple thing. Miami came out and played pressure defense in the second half, and the Orange could not handle it. And look, frankly, you can kind of see something like that coming a mile away, even when Syracuse had the big lead. We know that Syracuse is going to have its struggles on defense. That eventually came through, although there were times in the first half they looked pretty good on defense, and Miami looked pretty confused. But Miami turns on the pressure in the second half. And look, Syracuse is just not a very athletic team. Flat out, they can't get a lot of players that can drive to the basket, can drive by guys. I mean, it happens at times, but generally this is not a very athletic team. And a staggering amount of turnovers for Syracuse in this game. And that's really, there's a few stats here. You got to grab your red pen and circle. But Syracuse commits 19 turnovers in this game. That leads to 25 points off turnovers for the Hurricanes. Go the other way. Miami only turns the ball over 10 times. Syracuse gets 11 points off turnovers. And that's not something Syracuse could count on for two reasons. One, they're not a good defensive team. This is one of the worst defensive teams I've ever watched at Syracuse. And number two, Miami doesn't turn the ball over. They had one of the best assist to turnover ratios coming in to this game. So that's not something you're going to be able to count on. But for Syracuse to just completely wilt under that defensive pressure was something to watch because they played well in the first half. They led by 14 points at halftime. And then Miami just dropped the hammer here. So Syracuse drops to 7-7 on the season. And while it may only be January 5th, we're starting to see a real reality here with this basketball team, folks. A reality that it could be Jim Boeheim's first sub-500 team as they straddle the 500 line. They are off to their worst 14-game start under Jim Boeheim. It was the worst 13-game start coming in, and certainly it didn't improve in this stretch. This is a really bad defensive team. It's a team that's got its flaws. I mean, look, they fight. They play hard. They did stay in this game. They didn't get their doors blown off here, but it's not a team that can hold leads. This is certainly not the first time they've blown a big lead in the second half. It's not a team that can defend, and it's a team that really has some flaws. And as Uncle Brent likes to say, free throws matter. You look for what Syracuse could have gotten here, and I'll respond to some of your comments here shortly. Appreciate you guys watching, of course. Make sure you tell us where you're watching from in the comments section. I'll start responding to you guys here shortly. But let's go over a couple of numbers from this one. So where do you find the points in a close game like this? Well, Syracuse goes 12 of 18 from the free throw line. That's 67%. Miami was 19 of 24. That's 79%. Jimmy Boeheim, I don't know what's up there. All the work that he puts in, you know, something's in his head right now. He has been terrible from the free throw line. Really, I'd have to look at the prior numbers to ACC play, but particularly since they got into ACC play, particularly in the last two games, he goes 2 of 5 from the free throw line. In this game, Joe Girard missed a free throw. You need those points back, right? But particularly Jimmy Boeheim, with somebody you got to count on to get to the free throw line with his work in the paint. He ends up with 7 points, 8 rebounds on the game. He does lead the Orange in rebounding, but I don't think you could chalk this up as a good game for Jimmy Boeheim. Joe Girard, you got what you needed out of Joe Girard points-wise, 26 points on the night. He had 7 3-pointers. He's going to play 37 minutes. You got to get that, though he struggled against that pressure defense in the second half. You know, Girard did his job. Jesse Edwards, what a game for him. And it's a shame that Syracuse wastes one of the best performances from a big man they've had in recent times. I mean, Jesse, 22 points, 10 of 13 from the field, 8 rebounds. He has 6 block shots, which set a new career high. I mean, the guy nearly had a triple-double out there, played 38 great minutes. Frankly, they didn't feed him enough in the second half, but what more can you ask from him? Cole Swider ends up with 20 points. He hit 6 3-pointers. A couple of those were garbage threes at the end. Had a 3-pointer at the buzzer for entertainment purposes only. So Syracuse covered on that one thanks to Swider. So better than he's been, but still, he's got his flaws and his problems defensively, and somebody that struggles in a lot of areas on the court. He did add 7 rebounds out there. Symir Torrance and Benny Williams got some run in the second half. Symir ends up with 6 assists. He plays 14 minutes and dishes out 6 assists. Girard with 2 assists in 37 minutes. This was more of a scoring game for Joe Girard, so you somewhat excuse it there. But it's amazing how Symir Torrance makes the most of his time out there. They needed him for ball handling purposes against that Miami pressure defense. 6 assists to 1 turnover, by the way. So Symir continuing to show that he can really give this team something coming off the bench. All told, Syracuse shot 49%, 29 of 59. Miami, same amount of field goals, 29 of 65 in their case for 45%. Syracuse hit 17 3-pointers in this game. I mean, you hit 17 3-pointers in a game, you got to win. You score 87 points in a game, you got to win. But per Syracuse's defensive struggles, what happens is average teams become good teams become great teams become excellent, and so on and so forth. Miami came in as a team that had a strong offensive reputation. So them scoring 88 points when they had not scored more than 70, I believe, against Syracuse since these two had crossed paths in ACC play. Not a surprise, but Syracuse certainly helping their cause there. And to see this team just wilt like it did in the second half, not encouraging at all. I mean, we knew this is a Syracuse team that had its flaws, but Miami didn't really do anything. They didn't reinvent the wheel. They just put more pressure on an unathletic team. Frankly, it took Jim Larinaga that long to figure that out. And the result is what we got here. The result is, look, we're Syracuse is only a few games into ACC play here. Every game's a fight. Every game's a struggle. They can't defend. Even when they, as noted, score 87 points, hit 17 3-pointers, they're still struggling because they can't make stops. They can't make enough stops. And the other problems that we saw in this game, this is going to be something that looks like it's going to be a pattern, right? What can Syracuse improve on? How can they improve to look? This is not a serious contender for the NCAA tournament right now. I don't even want to put that breath out there, given the way they're playing and also the way the ACC is, folks. There's only 4 legit teams that could get into the NCAA tournament right now, and I understand the season doesn't end tomorrow, and we've got another month or so to go here. Haven't even hit the halfway point of the season, but the ACC, it's a real small window here, and those opportunities for Syracuse. Now, this was not a quad 1 game, so if you want to take some sort of good news out of a loss like this, it wasn't a quad 1 game, but it's one of the top teams in the ACC right now, and frankly, a game Syracuse needed to win to get back on track to, tell itself it can win important games like this. It only gets bigger on Saturday when they play Wake Forest, which is a quad 1 game, and they just played a 92-84 game to Wake Forest. So Syracuse is going to be in for another high-scoring back-and-forth game, one would think, at Wake Forest, but they're having trouble closing these ones. So the comments are flowing hot and heavy. Appreciate you guys watching tonight. And let's start highlighting some of these comments here. They're coming in as quicker than I can highlight them. So you guys are having a great conversation here, but let's jump in and see a little bit of what you're saying in this one. RJ says Jimmy Boeheim a liability tonight, yet he barely sat. Yeah, this is one of those things where the numbers kind of lie to you. I gave you the numbers a minute ago from Jimmy. He didn't play well. He looked overwhelmed. That's not Yale out there. That's not Harvard out there. That's not Ivy League basketball. That's a Miami team that is coming at you in waves. And he was just overwhelmed. I think the free throw thing's in his head right now. And you want to see him get out of it because he can be an asset for this team. He can hit threes, usually scores the first buckets for Syracuse, can rebound a little bit. But right now, he's kind of getting a reality check about what ACC play looks like here. Michelle, I think, echoes what a lot of you are saying, play Symir more. And look, you can have Symir Torrance and Joe Girard out there at the same time. We saw that tonight. Didn't even mention it yet. Buddy Boeheim struggled. Buddy Boeheim, who managed to get 27 points against Virginia on Saturday, despite the hounding they put on him defensively, didn't really have it tonight. All told, Buddy, 9 points, 2 of 6 from three-point range, did get to the free throw line a couple of times, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, played 35 minutes. So not what you need from Buddy Boeheim there. But with Symir and Joe, look, when Joe Girard and Symir Torrance are on the court at the same time, Symir needs to handle the ball. I gave you the numbers earlier. He's better against pressure. I looked in the box score. The fact that Joe Girard only had 1 turnover, that's got to be wrong. I mean, Girard really struggled with his handle against that Miami pressure defense. And Joe did his job tonight offensively. Tonight was an example of Symir and Joe can coexist, but Symir's got to handle the ball. I mean, 6 assists in 13 minutes, and he is pushing for more time out there. So we'll see if they do that. And Boeheim put out a pretty interesting lineup. His best ball handlers, you had Symir, Joe, Benny, Cole, Swider, Jesse Edwards. That's not a lineup you see often, particularly with both Boeheims on the bench in the second half of this game. But it's a lineup that Syracuse needed to stay into this one for sure. We mentioned the 17 threes. Dennis says they needed 20 3-pointers in a game like this. Brian says it. Look, Jimmy Boeheim, pardon me, he did look like an Ivy League player tonight. And I think people are kind of wondering, can he make that transition? He's certainly shown at times this year that he's a great player and can play at a high level at this pace. You know, I think he's in a rough stretch. I think he can make that transition. And I think he is going to be a player that's going to help Syracuse more than it hurts it. But certainly tonight, that was not the case. Ed checking in from Blue Ridge, Georgia. 18 turnovers, poor defense, poor free throws. What's up with that free throw shooting? Yeah, I wish I could tell you. I really don't know. Free throw, I mean, I was talking to Buddy Boeheim about this the other day. I interviewed Buddy and Jimmy weekly on my radio show. I'm going to talk to Jimmy tomorrow, so we'll see what he thinks about his struggles. But, you know, it's like you go to the driving range as a golfer, right? And you're just smoking it at the driving range, right? Bing, bang, boom, up the middle every time. Then you get out there in real action. You get on the course and you're spraying it everywhere. That's like free throw shooting. These guys go to practice. They have the same routine. They've got it in their head, but then you're out there in live action, crowd yelling at you on the road, other players on the court, and it can just throw you off that much. It's a sequence thing. It's a routine thing. And if it gets in your head, it can just completely alter your swing, if you will. And I think that's what's going on with Jimmy right now. But this is a pattern, not only the past couple of games. You know, Jimmy coming in, I believe, you can double check my numbers, guys, but he's about 58% from the free throw line. So something's up there. As Brian notes here too, current roster not athletic enough for the ACC. Mark says this is the worst defensive team by far in my 45 years watching. And Mark, that's not just a bold opinion. That's right. This is a historically bad defense. You know, coming in tonight, they were giving up about 75 points per game. That's the most since the 88-89 Syracuse basketball team. That team went to the Elite Eight. That team had Sherman Douglas, Billy Owens, Derek Coleman, and the crew, and is one of the most insanely talented teams I've ever seen. So they could give up 75 points per game because they were so darn good on the other end of the floor. That's not the case with this team. This is a team that, you know, lives and dies by its offense. It lives and dies by the three. And the frustrating thing is, if you're a Syracuse fan, is, look, we mentioned the 17 3-pointers. They did go in the paint tonight. They did run plays for Jesse Edwards. They fed Jesse Edwards. There was a balanced attack on offense here. So it wasn't a case of, oh, they took too many threes or, you know, didn't go into the paint. They did, right? Jesse Edwards had 22 points in this game. He could have had 30 if they kept feeding him. And frankly, they went away from him at times in the second half, but at least they did it. At least they ran plays for Jesse. They saw a matchup. They exploited it. It was complemented by 17 threes, and you still lose an 18-point lead. You know, you still get outscored in the second half. What was that number again? 58-43. I mean, it just goes to show you, per that comment we just highlighted, this is literally the worst defensive team I've ever watched in watching Syracuse basketball since, you know, the mid-1980s. And, you know, that's not only the case in terms of the eye test, statistically, this is one of the worst defensive teams we have seen. Chris makes a good point here. A veteran team should not struggle with pressure ball this much. Martin says second half defense killed the Orange, watching from Florida. There you go, Marty, my man down there, not too far from Miami, where it was about 75 and sunny, and we got some lake effect snow coming our way up here in central New York in the next couple of days. So enjoy that sunshine down there. Joe saying here, a once proud program. Eric saying it was pathetic that Boeheim did not make any adjustments. And he notes the play-by-play announcer. Look, I don't want to pick on the young lady. She was pretty bad. She, at one point, said that a player for Miami was Cole Swider. She was misidentifying players a lot. It was a rough go, okay? And the ACC network's got to recognize that if you're going to put these announcers remotely, okay, Dan Bonner and I forget the young lady's last name, Angel was her name, who did play-by-play, you're already putting them at a disadvantage by not sending them to the arena, right? But she clearly wasn't prepared for the game. She had a rough go. Look, I've called games. I've done a lot of broadcasts in my life. Sometimes it just doesn't go your way. But the viewer notices when, if it, in this case, the ACC network or whoever it is cuts corners here, and you got to do your prep work. You got to know what game you're calling here. Everybody makes a mistake or two, but that was a rough broadcast. So the good news is all the games are on TV these days. You don't miss them. The bad news is sometimes you kind of get that cut rate production, and it really did affect the game. And I hate when that happens, and I feel bad. I think she'll get better the more she goes, but that didn't help, especially when Syracuse, was falling apart. You're already a frustrated fan when the broadcaster can't even figure out what team the players are on. So there you have it on that. Jermaine checking in. Always appreciate seeing our friend Jermaine. Another disappointing loss. Our chances aren't looking good for the NCAA tournament. Now, I don't want to talk about this team seriously in the NCAA tournament conversation for reasons I brought up earlier. But if you want to be fair about it, Syracuse does have 9 games left, including Wake Forest on Saturday, that are quad 1 opportunities. This was not a quad 1 game tonight. Quad 2 games are certainly important as well, but there's 9 of those left. Take care of business. Win. At this point, you probably got to win 6 out of those 9 just to be in the conversation, and you're in the conversation. In an ACC that you can look at it one of two ways. The league's down, and it's going to be tough to get in, or that's an opportunity, right? You've got Duke, you've got Virginia Tech, you got Louisville. This Miami team is right on the edge of the poll, and if they keep playing like this, they've won 8 in a row, 4-0 in the ACC. They should be ranked, frankly. Wake Forest has been a team that's been close to breaking into the rankings, and we'll see how it goes here. But typically the ACC, without a second thought, has 6 teams that are an NCAA tournament conversation, has 4 or 5 teams in the poll, and is in the short breath of one of the best conferences in college basketball. That's not the case this year. Syracuse can squeeze out another few shootouts here the way they're playing and get some quad 1 wins. They'll be back in it. But come on, you've watched this team. I've watched this team. At no point have I said to myself, this is a legit NCAA tournament team. And I understand the past couple of years, just when we think they're out, to use the old Al Pacino line, right? That's when I thought they were out. They pulled me back in, right? They've done that to us so many times the past few years. Here's the difference. Those teams could play defense. This team is awful on defense, and I don't see how it gets better to the level where they can be in serious NCAA tournament contention, but weirder things have happened, right? So don't write them out yet, but that's the difference between this team and those other teams that squeaked in the tournament. They were either really good on defense or really good on offense. This team is theoretically really good on offense. They've got shooters that drop 87 points in a game like this. They can score at a high level. They got 110 points against Indiana. This team can score, right? But they're so bad on defense that you can't balance out the other thing. So, yeah, at this point, you really, really can't talk about this team seriously in NCAA tournament conversation. But, we got how many ACC games to go here? About 16 or so. So we'll see how it goes. Things have turned around in a hurry before. Jimmy notes it here best. You cannot score 87 points and lose. No, you can't. As we're talking about with the defensive issues on this team. Let's see. David brings up a good point here. Buddy missed the front end of a one-on-one free throw opportunity. That's brutal. 12 of 18 overall from the free throw line. That's tough, but that started a stretch where Miami was able to pad the lead just enough that no matter what Syracuse did, they weren't overcoming that one, right? And just kind of looking at some more of your comments here, the free throw shooting was important. Jim saying here that Boeheim can't effectively coach the defense. Syracuse teams have paid the price for years. It's incredible to think about, right? And I want to highlight Brian's comment as we're talking about it here. The opening strategy feeding Jesse Edwards was brilliant, needed to adjust with plan B, and repeating turnovers. Did they even use timeouts? Yeah, a lot of questions about what was going on with his team. But the free throws, I lost my chain of thought there. I was going to say something about free throws. But yeah, Buddy missed the front end there, 12 of 18 overall. Ends up being a 1-point game, right? The possessions you can't give away against a team like this. Miami had a low assist to turnover ratio coming in, right? So those possessions are gold. You can't give those things away. Yet, here they are. At the end, they lose by 1 point, right? As much as Miami dominated the second half, Syracuse was never out of it. So you want to find the silver lining here where you can. You want to try and find a reason to say this team can stay in contention. But if they keep playing games like this, they're just going to collapse, right? They're just going to collapse from exhaustion. You can't play games like this and pile up losses like this. It's just going to put a strain on a team mentally. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Syracuse is staying on the road, by the way. So they played Miami tonight. They play Wake Forest on Saturday. They are not coming home in between. They're going to go right from Miami to Wake Forest, spend an extra day there. And that's a 2:00 tip time on Saturday. So, school being out of session right now and everything. And I'm not sure how COVID factors into this, but I guess the less planes you have to take and protocols and, trying to keep it as tight as you can here. So they will not come home. They're going to go right. I believe they're going to stay in Miami tonight, head to Wake Forest tomorrow, get a couple practices in, and then we got a 2:00 game on Saturday. Ben says only January 5th. But sadly, I'm already looking at next season. 1, any chance Buddy returns? And 2, why not play Benny more to develop him for next season? 2 great points there, Ben. 1 on Buddy. No, I don't think Buddy's coming back next year. I guess you always have to leave open the possibility he could change his mind, but I think he's pretty determined to move on. I think he could be an NBA draft pick, though. Looking at it this year, the way he's getting double teamed and defended, I think NBA teams are going to notice that. But I think he is going to move on and pursue a pro career after this season. Your point on Benny is spot on to me. I think Benny is showing game by game he can handle more minutes. I think he was effective in the second half. Hit a 3-pointer in this game. Interesting to see him break that out. And if Cole, again, I don't want to knock Cole Swider too much. The guy had 20 points, 6 of 9 from 3-point range. That's what you ask him to do. But if he continues to struggle in other areas of the court, I think Benny's a better all-around talent. And you got to see what Benny can do in game situations. So 2 good points there. And I think we'll see the second point there develop some more as the season goes along here. Pat notes it here too. Defense is the problem. You got to score 87 points and win the game. How about Katie in minus 15-degree weather in Minneapolis tonight? I was watching a little bit of the outdoor classic there, -5 opening faceoff there with the Minnesota Wild. A couple more comments from you guys here, and then we'll wrap it up. And pardon me for a second here, guys. Just catching up on all the comments coming in here. Of course, my computer's not playing nice. There it is. Okay, here we go. Brian says this is a 500 team. It's literally a 500 team now, and they're going to fight to be a 500 team overall with the way things are going at this point. We're talking about Benny there. Michael Antonio says, play Benny and prepare the team to win the ACC tournament. It's going to be one of their only paths into the NCAA tournament if it continues at this rate. Jim brings up an interesting point. Good minutes from Torrance, but he's awful on offense. Not the most talented offensive player. He can't get to the basket, not particularly a shooter. That's the balance there. Joe Girard's the offensive player there. But tonight, I think we got a good sense of when those two are on the court at the same time, it frees up Joe to come off screens. It frees up Joe to focus on offense and let Symir run the offense when they're in that situation and the matchups allow at that point. And Michael brings up this point here. The 1-point game is misleading because Swider hit that meaningless 3 at the end. So, yeah, 87-84 if he doesn't hit that 3. close game, but a game that Syracuse ultimately, Eric, I think this is a good comment to end the show on. I'm tired of silver linings. Yeah. I believe, as it was said in the great movie Ghostbusters, I've worked in the private sector. They expect results. Well, we'll see how Syracuse handles this going forward. Like we said, they're going to stay on the road. Wake Forest is I haven't looked at the net rankings today, but last I did look, that is certainly a quad one opportunity for Syracuse. Wake Forest fell to Miami the other day, 92-84. They certainly can score. And if Syracuse is going to be in that game, it's going to be a similar one to this, and that they got to score, 17 3-pointers, get those shooters going, and try not to blow an 18-point lead, right? Brutal loss for Syracuse all around here, as they're up by 18 points at one point, 44-30 at halftime, but ultimately fall to Miami by a final score of 88-87. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Always appreciate it. We will come back Saturday. We'll be right back here after the Orange take on Wake Forest. That's a 2:00 tip time. So about 10 minutes or so after the game's over, we'll be right here on the Syracuse Orange Facebook page, Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube. You can find the YouTube clip of this show. If you miss it, we put it out on our social media channels. It's in my recap on syracuse.com as well, just in case you can't be here live after the games. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. We'll talk to you Saturday, about 4:00 after the Orange take on Wake Forest.